Introduction. The truth nobody wants to tell you. Somewhere out there, right now, someone is living the life you keep postponing. They wake up in the body you keep promising yourself. They do the work you keep planning to start. They enjoy the freedom you keep telling people you will have someday. And here is the detail that should keep you up tonight. Most of them started with less than you have at this exact moment. Less money, less support, less education, less time. The difference between you and them is not luck, and it is not talent. The difference is that at some point, they stopped waiting to be rescued, and you have not, yet. This book exists to end the waiting. You have probably noticed a pattern in your own life, even if you have never said it out loud. Every few months, something lights a fire in you. A video, a book, a hard conversation, a birthday that lands wrong, a glimpse of yourself in a window you did not expect. For a few days you are on fire. You make plans. You buy the notebook, the shoes, the course. You tell yourself, this time is different. And then, quietly, without any dramatic moment of quitting, the fire goes out. Life absorbs you back into its old shape. 6 months later, another spark, another fire, another fade. Years pass this way, whole lives pass this way. The problem was never your desire. Your desire is real. The problem is that you have been waiting, in 100 hidden ways, for something outside of you to carry the weight. Waiting for motivation to stay, waiting for circumstances to soften, waiting for someone to believe in you first, to open the door first, to hand you the plan, waiting to feel ready. And the world, which owes you nothing and has never pretended otherwise, simply keeps moving while you wait. So this book begins with the sentence that gives it its name, and it is important that you hear it correctly. Nobody will save you, not as an insult, not as despair, as a fact, and more than a fact, as a gift. Because hidden inside that hard sentence is the best news you will ever receive. If nobody is coming, then nothing is missing. There is no rescue party you must wait for, which means there is no delay you must accept. Everything required for your transformation is already on site. The worker has already arrived. The worker is you. Here is what this book is not. It is not a magic system. It is not a promise that everything will be easy, or fast, or fair. It will be none of those things, and any voice that promises otherwise is selling you something. This book is also not a lecture from someone who thinks you are lazy. You are probably not lazy. You are probably tired, scattered, discouraged, and carrying more than most people know. Lazy people do not seek out books like this one. Something in you is still fighting, or you would not be here. This book is for that part of you. It intends to feed it until it takes over. Here is what this book is. It is 10 chapters, and each one is a load-bearing wall in the same structure. Chapter 1 hands you the deed to your own life and asks you to sign it. Full responsibility, no exceptions. Chapter 2 burns down the myth of the perfect moment and gets you moving today, in imperfect conditions, because those are the only conditions that exist. Chapter 3 gives you the machinery of habit, so your progress stops depending on how you feel. Chapter 4 retrains your relationship with pain and struggle, turning them from enemies into instructors. Chapter 5 hunts down your excuses one by one and takes their weapons. Chapter 6 trains your mind for pressure, so that when life hits hard, and it will, you bend instead of break. Chapter 7 takes you into the unwatched hours, where every real achievement is actually built. Chapter 8 teaches you to turn failure, which is coming for you regardless, into fuel. Chapter 9 helps you protect your time and energy from the people who quietly drain them. And Chapter 10 binds it all together with the only commitment that makes the rest of it permanent: improvement every single day for the rest of your life. Every chapter ends with something to do, usually tonight, usually small. Do these things. This matters more than anything else that can be said here. Listening to this book and doing nothing will give you a pleasant feeling for a day or two, and then it will join the pile of other pleasant feelings that changed nothing. This book is not designed to be agreed with. It is designed to be used. The words are cheap. Your actions are the actual product, and only you can manufacture them. One more thing before the work begins. At some point in these chapters, probably more than once, you will feel a flash of recognition that stings. A sentence will describe you a little too accurately, Name a pattern you thought was private. Expose an excuse you have been dressing up as a reason for years. When that happens, do not turn away, and do not turn on yourself either. That sting is not an attack. It is the feeling of a light coming on in a room you have kept dark. Nothing in a dark room can be fixed. Everything in a lit one can. You have spent enough years rehearsing, enough years being the person who is going to do it. The rehearsal is over. The curtain is up. The audience, in the end, is just one person, the one you will face in the mirror at the end of your life, who will ask you a single question. We had all that time. What did we do with it? Start building your answer. Turn the page. And work like hell. Chapter 1. Accept that your life is completely your responsibility. There is a moment in every person's life when the truth arrives uninvited. It does not knock politely. It does not wait for you to be ready. It simply shows up, sits down across from you, and stares until you can no longer look away. And the truth is this: nobody is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your government, not your friends, not some future version of luck that you keep waiting for. Nobody. The life you are living right now, with all of its problems, all of its unfinished dreams, all of its quiet disappointments, belongs to you. And the only person on this planet with the power to change it is the one reading these words right now. That truth can feel heavy at first. It can feel unfair. You might be thinking about all the things that happened to you that were not your fault, the family you were born into, the opportunities you never got, the people who hurt you, the doors that closed before you even reached them. And you are right. Many of those things were not your fault. Life is not fair, and pretending otherwise is a lie. But here is the part most people miss, the part that separates those who rise from those who stay stuck. Fault and responsibility are two different things. What happened to you may not be your fault, but what you do about it is 100% your responsibility. Nobody else can carry that for you. Nobody else will. Think about what happens when you blame others for where you are. It feels good for a moment. Blame is like a painkiller. It numbs the sting of your situation. You tell yourself the economy is bad, your boss is unfair, your family held you back, the timing was wrong. And every one of those things might contain some truth. But notice what blame actually does to you. When you say your life is someone else's fault, you are also saying your life is in someone else's hands. You are handing over the steering wheel. You are declaring, without realizing it, that you are powerless. And a person who believes they are powerless will never take powerful action. Why would they? In their mind, nothing they do matters. Responsibility is the opposite. Responsibility says, I may not have chosen this situation, but I choose what happens next. Responsibility puts the steering wheel back in your hands. It is not about guilt. It is not about beating yourself up for past mistakes. It is about ownership. It is about looking at your life the way an owner looks at their business. When something breaks in your business, you do not spend the day complaining about who broke it. You fix it because it is yours, and nobody else is going to fix it for you. The Stoic philosophers understood this 2,000 years ago. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no freedom, no wealth, no rights. If anyone in history had a reason to blame the world, it was him. Instead, he taught a simple idea that has survived 20 centuries. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Our opinions, our efforts, our choices, our responses are within our control. Other people's actions, the past, the weather, the economy, are not. He said that suffering comes from trying to control what we cannot, while neglecting what we can. A man who was owned by another man figured out that his mind still belonged to him. If he could take responsibility for his inner life while living in chains, what excuse do the rest of us have? Look at your own life honestly for a moment. Think about the areas where you feel stuck. Your health, your money, your relationships, your work, your habits. Now ask yourself a hard question. In each of those areas, how much of your energy goes toward blaming and how much goes toward building? Most people, if they answer honestly, will discover that they spend enormous energy explaining why things are the way they are, and very little energy changing them. Explanations feel productive, but they produce nothing. You cannot deposit an excuse in the bank. You cannot get healthier by describing why you are unhealthy. You cannot repair a relationship by proving the other person started it. Here is a practical way to begin. Tonight, before you sleep, take a piece of paper and write down the 3 biggest problems in your life. Be specific. Not, money is tight, but I have $5,000 of debt and no savings. Not, I am out of shape, but I have not exercised in 8 months and I feel tired every day. Then, next to each problem, write down 1 action you could take this week that would move it 1 inch in the right direction. Not solve it, just move it 1 inch. Pay $50 toward the debt. Walk for 20 minutes 3 times. Send 1 message you have been avoiding. This exercise does something powerful. It shifts your brain from victim mode to owner mode. It proves to you, with evidence, that you are not powerless. And once you have that evidence, everything begins to change. Notice how your language shapes your reality. Listen to how you talk about your problems. Do you say, I can't, when the truth is, I won't? Do you say, I don't have time, when the truth is, I have not made it a priority? Do you say, that's just how I am, when the truth is, that's a habit I have never seriously tried to break? Words are not harmless. Every time you speak like a passenger, you become more of a passenger. Every time you speak like a driver, you become more of a driver. Starting today, catch yourself. When you hear yourself saying, I can't, pause and ask, is that actually true, or is it just comfortable? Replace, I can't exercise in the morning with, I have chosen not to exercise in the morning. Feel how different that sentence lands. It stings because it is honest. And honesty is where change begins. There is another trap you must watch for, and it is more subtle than blame. It is waiting. Waiting for motivation. Waiting for the right circumstances. Waiting for someone to give you permission, to discover you, to hand you the opportunity you deserve. Waiting feels responsible because you are not blaming anyone. But waiting is just blame pointed at the future. It says the power to change your life exists somewhere out there, in some moment that has not arrived yet, in some person who has not shown up yet. The uncomfortable truth is that the rescue you are waiting for is you. You are the cavalry. You are the lottery ticket. You are the mentor you have been hoping would appear. When you fully absorb this, waiting becomes unbearable, and action becomes the only option that makes sense. Consider the story of a woman who spent 10 years in a job she hated. Every year she told herself the same story. The market is bad. I am too old to start over. My boss never gave me a chance to grow. Every year the story kept her exactly where she was. Then one day, her company laid her off, and the story collapsed. She had no job to blame, no boss to resent. Just herself and an empty calendar, and in that terrifying freedom, she did something she could have done a decade earlier. She took a course. She built a small skill. She offered that skill to one client, then two, then 10. Within 3 years, she was earning more than she ever had, working for herself. When people asked her what changed, she gave an answer worth remembering. She said, the layoff did not give her anything new. It just took away her excuses. The ability was there the whole time, buried under a pile of reasons. You do not need to wait for life to strip your excuses away by force. You can put them down voluntarily today. That is what responsibility means in practice. It means waking up and asking, before anything else, what is mine to do today? It means when something goes wrong, your first question is not, whose fault is this, but what is my next move? It means when you fail, and you will fail, you resist the urge to explain it away and instead sit with it long enough to learn from it. Failure teaches nothing to a person who blames. It teaches everything to a person who owns. Responsibility also extends to your inner world, and this may be the hardest part. You are responsible for your attitude. You are responsible for your reactions. Someone can insult you, but you decide whether to carry that insult around all day. Life can hand you a setback, but you decide whether it becomes a chapter or the whole story. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the entire Roman Empire while surrounded by betrayal, plague, and war, wrote reminders to himself in a private journal. One of his central ideas was that outside events have no power to disturb the mind unless the mind gives them that power. He was the most powerful man in the world, and even he understood that his real kingdom was the space between his ears. You govern that same kingdom. Nobody can make you bitter without your cooperation. Nobody can make you give up without your signature on the surrender. Now, some people confuse responsibility with doing everything alone. That is not what this means. Taking responsibility for your life includes taking responsibility for building the right relationships, asking for help when you need it, and learning from people who are ahead of you. The difference is in the posture. A victim waits for help and resents the world when it does not arrive. An owner seeks help, uses it, and remains the driver of their own journey. Asking a mentor for guidance is responsibility. Waiting for a mentor to notice you is not. Hiring a trainer is responsibility. Hoping motivation will strike someday is not. See the difference? One posture moves, the other one sits. Here is a challenge for the next 7 days. For 1 full week, ban complaining. Completely. Not out loud, and as much as possible, not in your head. Every time you catch a complaint forming, replace it with either an action or an acceptance. If you can do something about the problem, do it or schedule it. If you truly cannot do anything about it, accept it and move your attention to something you can influence. This will be harder than you expect. You will discover how much of your daily thinking is quiet complaint. But by day 7, you will notice something remarkable. Your energy will be different. Problems will start looking like tasks instead of tragedies. You will feel, perhaps for the first time in years, like the author of your life instead of a character trapped in someone else's story. Understand what is truly at stake here. This is not just about productivity or success. This is about dignity. There is a deep, quiet self-respect that comes from owning your life. And there is a deep, quiet self-contempt that grows in people who spend years blaming and waiting. You can feel it in yourself already. Every time you make an excuse, some part of you knows, and that part loses a little respect for you. Every time you take ownership, even of something small, that same part of you stands a little taller. Confidence is not built by affirmations in the mirror. It is built by keeping promises to yourself, and you cannot keep promises to yourself while insisting that your life is someone else's job. So decide, right now, while these words are still fresh, decide that from this moment forward, you are done outsourcing your life, done waiting for rescue, done blaming the past, the system, the people who wronged you. They may have written the opening chapters, but the pen is in your hand now. Your health is your responsibility. Your income is your responsibility. Your knowledge, your habits, your attitude, your relationships, your future, all yours. That is not a burden. That is the best news you will ever receive, because if your life is your responsibility, then your life can be changed by you, starting today, without anyone's permission. Nobody is coming to save you. Read that sentence again, and this time, notice what is hiding inside it. It is not a threat. It is a promotion. You have just been put in charge of the most important project that will ever exist, your one and only life. The question is no longer who will save you. The question is what you will build. Now that you know the builder is you. Take the paper, write the 3 problems, take the 3 small actions, ban the complaints, and begin, tonight, the work of a lifetime. Because the moment you accept full responsibility for your life is the exact moment your life begins to change. Chapter 2. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to begin. Somewhere in your mind there is a shelf, and on that shelf sits a dream covered in dust. You put it there carefully, years ago maybe, with a promise attached. Someday. Someday when work calms down. Someday when the kids are older. Someday when there is more money, more time, more confidence, more certainty. You visit that shelf now and then, wipe a little dust off the dream, feel a flicker of the old excitement, and then put it right back. Someday, and here is the brutal arithmetic you already suspect, but refuse to calculate. Someday is not a day of the week. It does not appear on any calendar. People die with their somedays still sitting on the shelf. Perfectly preserved, never attempted. The perfect moment you are waiting for does not exist. It never has. Look back at anything meaningful you have ever done. Was the timing perfect? Were you completely ready? Almost certainly not. You started school before you were ready. You took your first job before you were ready. If you have children, nothing on earth made you ready for that. Every important beginning in your life happened in imperfect conditions, with incomplete information, while you were still unsure. And yet you began, and you figured it out along the way, because that is the only way anything has ever been figured out. Readiness is not a prerequisite for beginning. Readiness is a result of beginning. Understand what waiting really is. Underneath its respectable disguise, waiting pretends to be wisdom. It says, I am being careful. I am being strategic. I am gathering information. But peel back the disguise and you will usually find plain fear. Fear of failing, fear of looking foolish, fear of discovering that your dream, once attempted, might not work, and then you would lose the comfort of the fantasy. Because as long as the dream stays on the shelf, it stays perfect. The unwritten book is a masterpiece. The unstarted business is a success. The unattempted change is guaranteed to work someday. The moment you begin, you expose the dream to reality. And reality is messy. So people protect their dreams by never starting them. The way a person might protect a seed by never planting it. The seed stays safe in the drawer, and it dies there, safe and useless. The cost of waiting is invisible, and that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. If waiting sent you a bill every month, you would stop immediately. Imagine an invoice arriving, 1 month of delayed fitness, cost, slightly weaker body, and lower energy. 1 month of the unwritten book. Cost: 3,000 unwritten words and 1 layer of self-trust eroded. 1 year of the postponed conversation. Cost: 1 relationship drifting further out of reach. You never see this bill, but you pay it in full, with interest. Ask any older person about their regrets. They will rarely talk about the things they tried and failed. They talk about the things they never started. The chances not taken, the words not said. Regret for action fades with time. Because even failure teaches and becomes a story. Regret for inaction grows with time, because the question of what might have been never gets an answer. There is a mathematical truth hiding here as well. Starting early with imperfect conditions beats starting late with perfect conditions. Almost every time. A person who invests a small amount of money at 25, clumsily and imperfectly, ends up far ahead of the person who waits until 40 to invest brilliantly. A person who writes 1 rough page a day starting today will finish a draft within a year, while the one waiting to feel inspired writes nothing in the same year. Time multiplies whatever you give it. Give it action, and it multiplies progress. Give it hesitation, and it multiplies nothing. The perfect plan executed next year loses to the decent plan executed this afternoon. So how do you actually break the waiting habit? Not with motivation. Motivation is weather, here in the morning and gone by lunch. You break it with a rule, and the rule is this: shrink the beginning until it becomes impossible to refuse. You do not need to start big. You need to start now, and now can be tiny. Do not start a fitness journey. Put on your shoes and walk to the end of the street. Do not write a book. Write 1 ugly paragraph. Do not build a business. Spend 30 minutes tonight researching 1 question about it. Do not fix your finances. Open the banking app and simply look at the numbers you have been avoiding. The size of the first step does not matter. The existence of the first step is everything, because it changes your identity from someone who is going to do something into someone who is doing it. Those are 2 different people, and the second one has momentum. Momentum is the secret that waiting people never discover. Before you start, the task looks like a mountain, and your mind calculates the entire climb from the parking lot. And the calculation says, stay in the car. But motion changes the math. Once you walk for 5 minutes, continuing feels natural. Once you write the ugly paragraph, a second one often follows. Objects in motion stay in motion, and you are the object. This is why the hardest repetition of any habit is the first one, and why the most important minutes of any work session are the first 5. Do not negotiate with the mountain. Negotiate only with the first step. Win that tiny negotiation and let momentum handle the rest. You must also learn to spot preparation, disguised as procrastination, because this is the sophisticated person's way of waiting. Buying another book about starting a business instead of talking to 1 potential customer. Watching another video about writing instead of writing. Reorganizing the desk, perfecting the plan, redesigning the schedule, researching the best running shoes for a run that never happens. Preparation feels like progress because it is effort, but effort aimed at avoiding the real thing is just fear wearing a hard hat. A simple test cuts through it. Does this activity put me in direct contact with the actual work, or does it keep me safely near the work without touching it? Reading about swimming is not swimming. At some point, and that point is today, you must get wet. Consider the story of 2 friends who both wanted to start a small food business. The first spent 2 years perfecting the plan. He researched locations, compared equipment, designed logos, waited for the market to improve, waited for his savings to reach a rounder number. The second friend started the same month the idea arrived. She cooked in her own kitchen, sold to neighbors, made mistakes in public, adjusted her recipes based on complaints, lost money on her first attempts. 2 years later, the first friend still had a flawless plan and 0 customers. The second had a small but real business, hundreds of loyal customers, and 2 years of hard-earned knowledge no book could have taught her. The difference between them was never talent or resources. It was that one of them understood that the second best time to start is always now, and the best time has already passed. There is also a deeper, quieter reason to stop waiting, and it has to do with self-respect. Every day you postpone what matters. You send yourself a message, "My word means nothing." You promised yourself you would start Monday, and Monday came and went, and some part of you recorded that broken promise. Enough broken promises, and you stop believing your own announcements entirely. This is why chronic waiters often feel a heavy, vague shame they cannot explain. It is the accumulated weight of 1,000 some days. And the repair works the same way in reverse. Start one small thing today, exactly as you said you would, and something in you takes notice. Do it again tomorrow, and belief begins to rebuild. Self-trust is not found. It is manufactured, one kept promise at a time, and the factory opens the moment you begin. Watch out for the perfectionist's objection, which sounds noble. If I cannot do it properly, I should not do it at all. Understand clearly what this really means. It means, if I cannot guarantee the ending, I refuse to write the beginning. But nobody can guarantee endings. The demand for guaranteed success before starting is a demand the universe has never honored for anyone. Every person you admire began badly. The first attempts of every master look embarrassing next to their later work, and they only reach the later work by producing the embarrassing early work. Bad beginnings are not the opposite of excellence. They are the raw material of excellence. Give yourself permission to be a beginner, to be clumsy, to produce work you will one day cringe at. The cringe is proof of growth, and growth is only available to those who start. Here is your assignment, and it expires at midnight tonight. Choose the one thing you have been postponing the longest, the heaviest, someday on your shelf. Now define the smallest possible physical action that moves toward it, something requiring 10 minutes or less. Then do it before you sleep, not tomorrow, tonight. Send the email. Do the 10 push-ups, write the paragraph. Look up the course, make the call, or if it is too late to call, write down exactly when you will call tomorrow and set the alarm. When you finish, notice the feeling. That small, warm sense of a door opening, that is what beginning feels like. And it has been available to you every single day you spent waiting. There is one more tool worth carrying, and it is a question small enough to fit in any moment of hesitation. When you catch yourself stalling, ask, what would this look like if I only had 1 year left? Not to be morbid, but to be accurate. Because a deadline exists on your life, whether you acknowledge it or not, and nobody has ever been shown the date. People who receive hard news about their health describe the same strange transformation again and again. The fog of someday burns off in a single afternoon. Priorities sort themselves instantly, and the courage they searched for over decades appears in a week. The information did not change, only the awareness of it. You can borrow that awareness now, at no cost, while you are healthy and the road is still long. Ask the question, feel how quickly the postponed things rearrange themselves toward the front, and act on the new order while the feeling is fresh. The conditions will never be perfect. You will never feel fully ready. There will always be a reason to wait. because life reliably supplies reasons to anyone shopping for them. Accept this completely, and something wonderful happens. Waiting loses its power. If the perfect moment does not exist, then this moment, flawed and ordinary as it is, becomes the best moment you will ever get. This hour, with your tired eyes and your unpaid bills and your doubts fully intact, is the raw material of your new life. Begin with it. Begin badly, begin small, begin scared, but begin. The dust on that shelf has waited long enough. Chapter 3. Build daily habits that push you forward relentlessly. Your life today is not the result of your biggest decisions. It is the result of your smallest repetitions. The body you live in was built by 10,000 ordinary meals, not one dramatic diet. The knowledge in your head was assembled by thousands of small moments of attention or distraction. Your bank account is the sum of countless minor choices to spend or save. Your relationships reflect years of small daily behaviors. A kind word here, a moment of patience there, or their absence. Nobody notices these tiny units of life as they pass. They feel weightless, and yet stack them up over a decade, and they become the entire architecture of who you are. This is the first law of habits. Nothing is more powerful than an ordinary action repeated daily, and nothing is more dangerous. Most people misunderstand how change works. They imagine transformation as an event, a single dramatic turning point, a lightning strike of motivation after which everything is different. So they wait for lightning. They attend the seminar, feel electric for 3 days, and return to their old patterns by Friday. Real transformation is not lightning. It is erosion and construction. It is water carving stone, one pass at a time. The person who reads 20 pages every day does not feel smarter on any given evening, but in 5 years they have absorbed over 100 books while their neighbor watched television. Neither of them made a big decision. Both of them made a small one, thousands of times. Understand the mathematics working underneath your days, because it is either working for you or against you right now. Improving by a tiny amount daily seems meaningless in the moment. One workout does not change your body. One page does not make a writer. One saved dollar does not build wealth. But small gains compound. Each improvement builds on the last, the way interest builds on interest. A person who gets 1% better at their craft each week is not slightly ahead after 5 years. They are operating in a different universe. Meanwhile, small daily declines compound too. The nightly hour of mindless scrolling, the skipped workout, the avoided difficult task, each one invisible, each one collecting interest in the wrong direction. You are always compounding. The only question is which way. Now, knowing habits matter is worthless without knowing how to build them. So here is the practical machinery. Every habit runs on a simple loop. A cue triggers the behavior happens, and a reward closes the loop and tells your brain to repeat it. You do not build habits with willpower. Willpower is a battery that drains by noon. You build habits by engineering the loop, so the behavior becomes nearly automatic. Start with the cue. Attach your new habit to something you already do without fail. After I pour my morning coffee, I write for 15 minutes. After I brush my teeth at night, I lay out tomorrow's workout clothes. After I close my laptop at the end of work, I walk for 20 minutes. The existing routine becomes the trigger, and you never have to remember or decide, which is exactly the point. Deciding is where habits die. Next, obey the rule of small. When building a new habit, your only job in the first month is showing up, not performing. Make the habit so small it feels almost silly. 2 push-ups, 1 paragraph, 5 minutes of study. Your ego will protest that 2 push-ups accomplish nothing, but your ego misunderstands the assignment. In the beginning, you are not training your body or your skill. You are training your identity. You are teaching your brain a single sentence. I am the kind of person who does this every day. Once that sentence is installed, scaling up is easy. Most people fail by starting at a size their motivation can lift, but their routine cannot hold. They do 90 minutes at the gym for 6 days and then never return. The person doing 10 unbroken minutes a day buries them by December. Design your environment, because your environment is quietly voting on your behavior all day long. The habit you want should be the easiest option in the room, and the habit you are breaking should be the hardest. If you want to read more, put the book on your pillow and the phone charger in the kitchen. If you want to eat better, do not rely on resisting the snacks in your cupboard. Simply stop letting them into the house and place fruit where your hand lands first. If you want to stop wasting your evenings, log out of the apps and delete them, forcing a reinstall every time, adding 30 seconds of friction. 30 seconds sounds like nothing, but habits live and die on friction. You are not weak for being shaped by your surroundings. You are human. The strong move is not resisting a badly designed environment. It is redesigning it. Track your habit visibly, because the mind loves an unbroken chain. Get a calendar and draw a mark for every day you show up. After a week, the row of marks becomes something you do not want to break. This simple trick converts your habit from an obligation into a game, and human beings will do remarkable things to keep a game going. But add one rule of mercy alongside it. Never miss twice. You will miss days. Life will intervene with sickness, travel, chaos. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit, the habit of not doing it. So the promise you make is not perfection. The promise is that a missed day is always followed by a done day. Champions are not people who never fall off. They are people whose recovery time from falling off is measured in hours instead of months. Give the same attention to destruction as to construction, because bad habits do not politely step aside for good ones. Take an honest inventory. For 3 days, simply observe yourself and write down where your time and energy actually go. Not where you think they go, where they actually go. Most people are shocked. The phone alone often consumes 3 or 4 hours daily, which is 1,500 hours a year, which is enough time to learn a language, build a business, or transform a body. You do not lack time. Almost nobody does. You lack awareness of where your time is bleeding, and a bleeding wound cannot heal while it stays hidden. Once you see the leak, apply the same loop in reverse. Remove the cue, increase the friction, and replace the reward. Do not just delete the scrolling. Fill the gap with something, because an empty space in a routine always gets refilled, and rarely by accident, with something good. Consider a man who decided at 40 that his life needed rebuilding. Overweight, in debt, mentally foggy, he had tried dramatic overhauls before, and each one collapsed within weeks under its own weight. This time, he chose something almost embarrassing in its smallness. He would walk for 10 minutes every morning and write down every dollar he spent. That was the entire program. His friends saw nothing worth commenting on. For the first month, neither did he. But the 10-minute walk grew on its own. First to 20, then to a slow jog. Because once you are already outside, continuing is easy. The spending log quietly killed dozens of small purchases because writing them down made them real. 18 months later, he was 30 pounds lighter and debt-free. And when people asked for his secret, they were disappointed by the answer. There was no secret. There was a tiny system honored daily, allowed to compound. The results looked dramatic. The process never did. That is the disguise all great change wears. Guard your mornings with particular care, because the first hour of your day sets the trajectory of the rest. A morning that begins with reaching for the phone begins in reaction. Other people's demands, other people's noise, and reaction mode tends to last all day. A morning that begins with even one deliberate act, movement, reading, planning the day, silence, begins in ownership. You do not need a celebrity's elaborate 5-hour morning routine. You need one keystone habit, done first, that declares who is in charge today. Win the first hour, and the day tilts in your favor. Lose it, and you spend until sunset trying to recover. Expect the plateau, and decide now how you will respond to it. Because this is where nearly everyone quits. Every habit passes through a valley where the novelty has worn off and the results have not yet arrived. The workouts feel routine, and the mirror shows nothing. The pages accumulate, but the skill feels stagnant. This valley is not a sign of failure. It is a checkpoint that filters out everyone who was only visiting. Results always lag behind effort. The way heat lags behind the flame under a pot. The water looks identical at 1 degree below boiling, and then everything changes at once. People quit at 1 degree below boiling every single day, and they never learn how close they were. When you find yourself in the valley, do not look for feelings of progress. Look at your calendar of marks. The chain is the progress. Trust the chain. Here is your assignment for tonight. Choose one habit, exactly one, that would most improve your life if done daily for a year. Shrink it to a 5-minute version. Attach it to an existing routine by writing the sentence, "After I do this existing thing, I will do this new thing." Prepare the environment tonight. Place the book, the shoes, the notebook where they cannot be missed. Then tomorrow, do the 5 minutes, mark the calendar, and consider the day a victory regardless of what else happens. One habit, honored daily, is worth more than 10 habits attempted and abandoned. In 90 days, when the first one runs on autopilot, add a second. You will not always be motivated, and this entire chapter exists to make that fact irrelevant. Motivation gets you started. Systems keep you going. The people you admire are not superhuman. They have simply automated their progress so thoroughly that discipline stopped being a daily battle and became a background process. Their good days are productive, and their bad days are productive, because the machine runs either way. Build the machine, feed it daily. Let it be boring, let it be small, let it be invisible to everyone around you. And then, let time do what time does to everything repeated. Multiply it beyond recognition. The future is not built someday. It is built today, before noon, in about 5 minutes. Chapter 4. Embrace pain and struggle as your greatest teachers. Everything in modern life is engineered to keep you comfortable, and that engineering is quietly ruining you. Food arrives without hunting, warmth without firewood, entertainment without effort, answers without thinking. Comfort has become the water we swim in, so constant that we treat any interruption of it as an emergency. A hard conversation, a difficult workout, a challenging project, a season of financial strain, and the modern mind screams that something has gone wrong. But nothing has gone wrong. Something has gone right. You have located the edge of your current self, and the edge is the only place where growth has ever occurred. Pain is not the enemy of a good life. Wasted pain is. And the difference between suffering that destroys and suffering that builds lies entirely in how you meet it. Look at how strength actually works. In every domain, without exception. A muscle grows only when stressed beyond its comfort, torn slightly, and rebuilt stronger. Bones densify under load and weaken in rest. Immunity develops through exposure. Skill develops through difficulty, at the awkward frontier where you fail more than you succeed. Courage develops only in the presence of fear, never in its absence. There is no version of growth, physical, mental, or emotional, that occurs inside the comfort zone. Comfort maintains. Struggle builds. This is not motivational poetry. It is the operating manual of every living system, including you. When you avoid all struggle, you are not protecting yourself. You are instructing your body and mind to become weaker, and they obey. The Stoics built an entire philosophy on this understanding. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, regularly practiced poverty on purpose, eating the cheapest food, wearing rough clothes, sleeping on the floor, and asking himself, "Is this the condition I so feared?" He was inoculating himself against fear itself. He understood that most of our suffering comes not from hardship, but from the dread of hardship, and that dread shrinks the moment you walk toward it voluntarily. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action, that what stands in the way becomes the way. He meant something precise. Every obstacle carries inside it the exact training you currently need. The difficult colleague is teaching patience. The failure is teaching humility and method. The loss is teaching what actually matters. The struggle is not blocking the path to your growth. The struggle is the path. Now bring this down from philosophy into your actual week, because there are two kinds of pain in your life, and you must learn to tell them apart. The first is the pain of growth, the burn of exercise, the discomfort of honest feedback, the awkwardness of being a beginner, the strain of focused work, the fear before a brave conversation. This pain is loud in the moment and generous afterward. It leaves you stronger, prouder, more capable. The second is the pain of decay, the dull ache of wasted years, the shame of avoided challenges, the slow corrosion of potential unexplored. This pain is quiet in the moment and merciless later. Here is the trade every human being is offered daily. You may choose the sharp, short pain of discipline, or you will receive the long, heavy pain of regret. There is no third option where pain is skipped entirely. There is only the choice of which one. And discipline weighs ounces, while regret weighs tons. Once you see this trade clearly, voluntary hardship stops looking like madness and starts looking like the best bargain available. So begin practicing it deliberately. Take cold showers, not because cold water has magic in it, but because 60 seconds of chosen discomfort every morning trains the exact muscle that hesitates before every hard thing in your life. Fast occasionally and discover that hunger is a sensation, not an emergency. Exercise to the edge of what you can do and then do a little more, and notice that the wall you thought was your limit was actually a door. Have the conversation you have been avoiding. Volunteer for the difficult project. Wake up an hour earlier. Each act of chosen difficulty deposits evidence in an account your mind checks constantly, the account labeled, "What I Can Handle." And when life eventually delivers involuntary hardship, as it will, you will meet it as a trained person meets a familiar opponent, rather than as a soft person meets a shocking stranger. Understand what happens inside you when you avoid discomfort, because avoidance is never neutral. Every time you dodge a hard thing, the hard thing grows. The unopened bill becomes scarier each week it sits there. The avoided conversation grows heavier each month. The skipped workouts make the next workout harder. Avoidance is a loan against your future self, taken at brutal interest rates. But the reverse is also true. And this is the great secret of people you consider brave. Action shrinks fear. Not thinking about the fear, not journaling about it, not researching it. Action. The phone call you dreaded for 2 weeks takes 11 minutes and is never as bad as the version rehearsed in your head. Fear is a fog that looks solid from a distance and thins with every step you take into it. The brave are not people who feel less fear. They are people who have learned through repetition that the fog is thin. Consider the difference between two people who lose their jobs in the same month. The first treats the event as pure catastrophe. He rehearses the injustice of it daily, protects himself from further discomfort, avoids the humbling work of starting over, and numbs the evenings with distraction. A year later, he is bitter, stalled, and fragile, and the next hardship will hit him even harder. The second person grieves for a week, honestly and without pretending, and then asks the only useful question: what is this teaching me, and what does it now make possible? She uses the forced pause to fix her health, learn the skill she had postponed for years, and rebuild in a direction she actually chose. A year later, she calls the layoff the best worst thing that ever happened to her. Identical event, opposite destinies. The event did not decide the outcome. The response did. Hardship is raw material, and raw material becomes whatever the builder makes of it. This is also where resilience is manufactured, and resilience may be the single most valuable possession a person can own, because it multiplies everything else. Skills, plans, and talents are all worthless in the hands of someone who collapses at the first impact, and resilience cannot be read into existence. It is built exclusively through contact with difficulty, the way calluses are built exclusively through contact with rough surfaces. Every struggle you survive recalibrates your scale of hard. The entrepreneur who survived nearly losing everything is calm in meetings that terrify others. Not because of genetics, but because of history. Her nervous system has evidence. When you protect yourself from all struggle, you are also protecting yourself from all evidence, and a person with no evidence of their own strength will believe every doubt that whispers to them. None of this means seeking suffering for its own sake, and the distinction matters. Pain is a teacher, not a god. Beating yourself up is not discipline. It is just self-harm wearing a uniform. Staying in a truly destructive situation is not resilience. It is a failure to act. The principle is precise. Choose discomfort that builds, endure hardship that arrives. Extract the lesson from both, and grant yourself genuine rest as part of the training rather than as an escape from it. Even here, honesty is required, because rest and avoidance can wear the same clothes. Rest is chosen, scheduled, and restorative. Avoidance is compulsive, guilty, and draining. After real rest, you feel ready. After avoidance, you feel worse. Learn to check which one you are actually doing. There is a practice that turns all of this from theory into muscle, and it takes 5 minutes at night. Before sleep, review the day and find the moment you flinched, the instant you chose the easy path over the growth path. Everyone flinches daily, so it will be there. Do not judge it. Just name it. Then find one moment you leaned into difficulty, however small, and give yourself credit for it. This nightly audit does something subtle and powerful. It trains you to see the fork in the road. Most people never even notice the daily choice between comfort and growth. It happens automatically, and comfort wins by default. Once you can see the fork, you can choose. And a person who chooses growth even 3 extra times a day is compounding courage at a rate that transforms years. Tomorrow, life will offer you something difficult. It always does. A tension in your body before a task, an urge to postpone, a conversation your stomach tightens around. That tightening is not a stop sign. It is an arrow, and it points directly at your next piece of growth. Walk toward it. Do the hard thing first, while your strength is fresh, and watch how the rest of the day bows to someone who has already conquered its worst part. Stop asking for a lighter load, and start building a stronger back. Stop praying for fewer storms, and start becoming the kind of person storms cannot uproot. The pain was never the problem. The pain was the curriculum. Class is in session every single day, and the students who show up become unrecognizable to the people who keep skipping it. Chapter 5. Cut every excuse that keeps you comfortable and stuck. Every excuse you have ever made has one job, and it performs that job perfectly. Its job is to make staying the same feel reasonable. That is all an excuse is. A permission slip for remaining who you already are. And the most dangerous thing about excuses is that the good ones are true. You really are busy. Money really is tight. You really did have a hard childhood. The market really is competitive. Nobody argues with your excuses because they contain real facts, and that is exactly why they are lethal. A lie can be exposed. A true excuse can protect your stagnation for decades. Because every time someone challenges you, you can point to the facts and win the argument while losing your life. So the question that matters is never whether your excuse is true. The question is whether it is useful. Does believing it move you forward or hold you in place? Take the most common excuse on earth. I don't have time. It feels airtight. Your calendar is genuinely full. But run the honest test. If someone offered you $1 million to find 90 minutes a day for the next month, would you find them? You would find them before breakfast. The scrolling would vanish. The shows would vanish. The aimless errands would compress, which reveals the uncomfortable truth. You have the time. What you lack is a reason that feels worth the sacrifice. And instead of admitting that, you blame the clock. The honest sentence is not, I don't have time. The honest sentence is, this is not currently important enough to me, and that sentence stings, which is precisely why it is powerful. Sting is a signal. It means you have stopped lying to yourself, and honesty is the doorway out. Walk through the greatest hits of the excuse catalog and watch each one dissolve under examination. I am too old. Yet the world is full of people who started businesses at 50, ran marathons at 60, learned instruments at 70, and every one of them was told they were too old, and every one of them is now the proof used to inspire others. The years will pass whether you begin or not, and in 10 years you will either have a decade of progress or a decade more of the same excuse. I don't have money. Yet the library is free, walking is free, information that previous generations would have killed for sits in your pocket at no cost, and many of the largest fortunes and finest bodies and deepest skills were built by people who started with nothing but consistency. I don't know how. Nobody knows how before they begin. That is what beginning is for. Knowing how is not the entry requirement. It is the prize. I am not talented enough. Talent determines your starting line, not your finish line, and every field is littered with wasted talent that lost to ordinary people who refuse to stop. Behind every excuse, if you press on it hard enough, you will find the same small creature hiding. Fear, dressed up as a fact. Understand why your brain manufactures these permission slips so eagerly. Because the machinery is not evil, it is ancient. Your brain is not designed to make you successful. It is designed to keep you safe. And to a survival-oriented brain, safe means familiar and energy efficient. Every change you attempt, every risk you consider, every hard project you approach triggers an internal alarm, and the brain's favorite way to silence that alarm is to hand you a reasonable-sounding story for why you should stay put. The story arrives instantly, fluently, and wearing the costume of logic. This means you cannot wait to feel excuse-free before acting, because the excuses will never stop being produced. You can only learn to recognize the product as it rolls off the assembly line and decline to purchase it. The thought I will start Monday is not information, it is merchandise. And you can leave it on the shelf. Here is the practical method, and it begins with an audit. Take a page and write your one biggest stalled goal at the top. Underneath, write every reason it has not happened yet. Do not censor, fill the page, get every justification out of your head and into the light. Now go down the list with a pen and mark each item with one of two letters. Mark it C if it is at least partially within your control, and mark it O if it is entirely outside your control. Watch what happens. Most of the list earns a C. You cannot control the economy, but you control your skills, your hours, your offers, your persistence. You cannot control your past, but you control every response to it from this sentence forward. For each C item, write one action that attacks it this week. For the rare, true O items, practice the oldest wisdom there is. Accept them fully and withdraw your energy from them, because energy spent on the uncontrollable is energy stolen from the controllable. Next, install the excuse tax. From today, you are allowed to skip anything you want, but you are not allowed to lie about why. If you skip the workout, you must say the honest sentence out loud. I chose comfort over my health today. If you postpone the business task, say it. I chose fear over my future today. No punishment follows, only accuracy. This sounds gentle, but it is brutal. Because excuses depend on dim lighting, they operate through vagueness, through the mumbled I couldn't and the shrugged it didn't work out. Force every excuse to state its real name in plain language, and most of them cannot survive the exposure. You will find yourself doing the workout simply because the honest sentence is more uncomfortable than the exercise. Watch also for the sophisticated excuses, the ones that dress in virtue. I am waiting until I can do it properly sounds like high standards, but usually means never. I am still researching sounds diligent, but often means hiding. I don't want to be one of those people who neglects their family. Sounds noble, but examine it. Does building your health or skill for one focused hour a day actually harm your family, or does the excuse borrow your family as a shield? Often the most loving thing you can do for the people around you is become stronger, calmer, healthier, and more financially stable. And the excuse that invokes them is, quietly, using them. The test for a virtuous-sounding excuse is simple. Does this reasoning consistently lead me to act, or consistently lead me to wait? Judge it by its fruit, not its costume. Then there is the excuse of the unfair start, and it deserves respect before it is retired. Perhaps you genuinely started with less, were dealt real wounds, carry real disadvantages. Acknowledging that is honesty, not weakness. But watch the pivot carefully, because this is where lives are decided. The facts of your past are fixed. The use of your past is not. The same history can be deployed as a life sentence or as fuel, and you have met both kinds of people. Two children can grow up in the same broken house, and one spends his life explaining his failures with that house, while the other builds an unbreakable one because of it. The house is identical. The story told about it is the difference. You are the narrator of your own history, and the narrator decides whether the early chapters were the reason everything failed or the reason the character became strong. Choose the second narration. It is equally true and infinitely more useful. Consider the man who spent 6 years saying he would write his book when work calmed down. Work never calmed down, because work never does. Then, a health scare parked him in a hospital bed for 2 weeks, and in that bed, with genuinely less time and energy than he had ever had, he wrote the first quarter of the book on his phone. The excuse had claimed the obstacle was time. The hospital proved the obstacle had been permission. He had finally, at the edge of mortality, given himself permission to consider his own dream a priority. Do not wait for a hospital bed to issue yours. Sign it yourself, today, at full health, and note carefully what his story reveals. Conditions did not improve before he started. They got dramatically worse, and he started anyway, which is the final proof that conditions were never the variable that mattered. Expect resistance from an unexpected direction as you cut your excuses, the people around you. Excuses are social. Groups build comfortable nests out of shared justifications, everyone agreeing that the town has no opportunities, that the industry is rigged, that people like us don't do things like that. When you stop reciting the shared excuses and start acting, you break an unspoken treaty, and some people will feel accused by your effort, even though you never said a word about them. They may mock the early attempts, predict your failure, remind you of your past. Understand what is actually happening. Your action threatens their permission slips. Do not argue. Do not announce. Do not seek their blessing. Work quietly, and let results conduct the entire conversation. Some of them will eventually ask how you did it. Some will drift away. Both outcomes are acceptable. Tonight, write down the single excuse you have used most this year. The sentence you reach for automatically when your biggest goal comes up. Write it out fully, look at it, and then write beneath it the honest translation, the sentence about fear or comfort or priority that it has been protecting. Then write one action, doable within 24 hours, that directly contradicts it. If the excuse says no time, schedule 30 minutes and defend them like an appointment with a surgeon. If it says too old, take the first step of the thing tonight and become, instantly, someone who started at exactly the right age, because the right age is the age at which you start. Do the action and pay attention to the strange lightness that follows. That lightness is the weight of the permission slip leaving your hand. A day is coming, whether you prepare for it or not, when the excuses will run out. At the end of a life, nobody stands before their own reflection and finds comfort in a well-argued justification. The unlived version of you, the one who trained, built, wrote, dared, and grew, does not accept explanations, because that version knows better than anyone that the explanations were optional the entire time. You cannot make excuses and make progress at the same moment. Each sentence you speak is one or the other. Choose your sentences accordingly, starting with the very next one you say about your own life. Chapter 6. Train your mind to stay strong under pressure. Pressure is coming. That is not pessimism. It is the weather report of every human life. The deadline will tighten, the money will get short, the relationship will strain, the plan will collapse at the worst possible hour. The phone will ring with news you did not want. You cannot schedule these moments, and you cannot prevent them all. What you can do, what the strongest people in history have always done, is decide in advance who will show up when they arrive. Because pressure does not build character nearly as much as it reveals it. And what it reveals is whatever you have been training in the quiet months before. The mind you bring to your worst day is being constructed right now, on your ordinary days, whether you are supervising the construction or not. Begin with the single most important discovery you can make about your own mind. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. Thoughts arrive on their own, thousands per day, uninvited and unscreened, and many of them are junk mail. The untrained person cannot tell the difference between thinking a thought and believing it. A thought says, "I can't handle this," and they collapse, because they assume the voice must be right. The trained person hears the same sentence and responds the way they would to a false rumor. Interesting claim. Where is the evidence? This small gap between hearing a thought and buying it is the foundation of all mental strength. Widen that gap, and pressure loses its favorite weapon, because most of what breaks people under stress is not the situation itself, but the panicked commentary about the situation running unchallenged in their heads. The Stoics practiced widening this gap with a technique so practical it feels modern. The evening rehearsal of difficulty. Before major events, and often before ordinary days, they would deliberately imagine things going wrong. The ship sinking, the deal failing, the insult landing, the plan collapsing. This was not morbid worrying, it was the opposite, because worrying is imagining disaster with no plan attached, while rehearsal is imagining disaster and then walking through your calm response to it. When you have already met the setback in your mind and watched yourself handle it, its arrival in reality loses the power of shock, and shock is half of what makes pressure destructive. Try it before your next difficult day. Spend 5 minutes imagining the 2 or 3 most likely problems, and for each one, decide your first calm action. You will walk in carrying answers instead of dread. Now train the body, because the mind and body are not neighbors. They are the same house. Pressure announces itself physically before you have thought a single word. Heart racing, chest tightening, breath climbing high and shallow. Left alone, the body's alarm feeds the mind's panic, which feeds the body's alarm. A spiral that has ruined countless performances, interviews, and difficult conversations. The intervention is almost embarrassingly simple, and it works, because breath is the only part of the alarm system under direct, voluntary control. When pressure hits, breathe in through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, out slowly through the mouth for 6 or 8. 3 rounds. The long exhale mechanically signals your nervous system that the emergency is over, and the mind, reading the body's calm, begins to settle. This is not a relaxation luxury. It is a 2-minute skill that lets you keep your intelligence online exactly when you need it most, because a panicked brain is a stupid brain, and every foolish decision made under pressure was made by someone whose thinking had been hijacked before they even noticed. Next, learn to shrink the moment. Under pressure, the untrained mind zooms out catastrophically. This failure means the whole project is doomed, which means my career is doomed, which means everything is falling apart. 10 seconds of pressure gets inflated into a referendum on your entire existence, and no nervous system can carry that weight. The trained response is to zoom in. What is required in the next 5 minutes? Not the next 5 years, the next 5 minutes. There is almost no crisis on earth in which the next 5 minutes are unmanageable. Handle them, then the 5 after that. Mountains are unclimbable. Steps are not. And every composed person you have ever admired in a crisis was simply someone taking one clear step while everyone around them stared at the mountain. Feed the mind deliberately, because mental strength has a diet just as the body does. If your daily inputs are outrage headlines, comparison scrolling, and the complaints of negative people, you are training anxiety with professional intensity and then wondering why you have no composure in reserve. Audit the inputs. Replace some portion of the noise with material that builds. Books that stretch you, voices that steady you, silence that lets your own thinking surface. And add the gymnasium of stillness. A few minutes daily of sitting quietly, attention on the breath, returning it each time it wanders. This is not mysticism. It is repetitions. Every time you notice the mind has wandered and bring it back, that is one rep of the exact muscle you will need under fire, the muscle of directing attention on purpose. People who cannot direct their attention in calm conditions have no chance of directing it in chaos. Then use difficulty itself as the true gymnasium, because comfort can teach theory, but only stress can teach performance. Seek regulated doses of pressure on purpose. Speak up in the meeting where your voice shakes. Take the cold shower and practice steadying your breath inside genuine discomfort. Set the tight deadline for yourself and work inside it. Enter the competition you might lose. Each voluntary encounter with manageable stress is a vaccination, exposing your system to a weakened dose so that the real thing finds you already immune. The people who fall apart under pressure are usually not weak. They are unpracticed. Their first encounters with real stress happen in the highest stakes moments of their lives, which is like taking your first swimming lesson in a shipwreck. Practice in the shallow end, deliberately, weakly, and the deep end loses its terror. Watch your self-talk under strain the way a coach watches an athlete's form, because under pressure, your inner voice will default to whatever it has rehearsed. If it has rehearsed self-attack, that is what you will hear at the worst moment. You always mess this up. Everyone can see you failing. You are not built for this. Understand clearly that you would never allow another person to speak to you this way in a crisis. And you would never coach a friend this way. So the standard is already inside you. Retrain the voice through deliberate replacement, not fake positivity, which the mind rejects, but firm accuracy. This is hard, and I have done hard things. I do not need to feel ready. I need to take the next step. Stay in this minute. Write your 3 steadying sentences down now, in calm conditions, and rehearse them until they are grooved, because the sentences you have practiced are the only ones that will be there when everything shakes. Consider the airline pilots whose engines fail in simulation hundreds of times before they ever carry passengers. When a real emergency comes, their hands move through procedures with unnatural calm, not because they feel no fear, but because the response was installed so deeply that fear cannot reach the controls. Nothing about their biology differs from yours. They simply refuse to leave their crisis behavior to improvisation. You can grant yourself the same advantage in your own arenas. Decide now what you do when criticism lands. Breathe, thank them, extract anything useful, discard the rest. Decide now what you do when the plan fails. Breathe, list what remains true, choose the next smallest action. Decide now what you do when panic rises at night. Get up, write every worry onto paper where it becomes finite. Assign each one a next step or an acceptance. Return to bed. Pre-decided responses are the difference between a mind that owns pressure and a mind that pressure owns. Understand finally what this training is really for. Because it is not about becoming emotionless. Feel everything. Fear, grief, frustration, doubt. They are all part of a full human life, and pretending otherwise is just another kind of fragility. Strength is not the absence of these feelings. Strength is the refusal to hand them the steering wheel. The storm can rage in the sky of you while your hands stay steady on the work. That combination, full feeling and full function, is the actual target, and it is trainable by everything in this chapter. Tonight, build your pressure protocol on a single page. Your breath pattern at the top. Your 3 rehearsed sentences beneath it. Your pre-decided responses to your 3 most likely crises beneath that. Then, choose one voluntary discomfort for this week and schedule it. This page will look almost too simple to matter, and it will sit quietly until the day the floor tilts under you, and on that day, it will be worth more than everything else you own. The storm is coming. It is always coming, and it does not care whether you are ready. Be ready anyway. Calm is not a gift some people are born with. Calm is a skill, and the training window is open every day before the storm, including this one. Chapter 7. Work harder when nobody is watching or clapping. There are 2 versions of every person, the one that performs when eyes are on them, and the one that exists when the room is empty. The first version is a costume. The second is the truth. And here is the law that governs every meaningful achievement in human history. Everything you will ever be applauded for in public is manufactured entirely in private. The speech that moves a crowd was built alone at a desk at night. The body admired at the beach was built in a gym at dawn, one unwitnessed repetition at a time. The business that looks like an overnight success was assembled across years of invisible evenings while the founder's friends were at parties. The applause is never for the moment it appears to be for. The applause is for the 10,000 silent hours behind it, arriving late, all at once, addressed to a person who long ago stopped needing it. That last part is the secret most people miss, and it is why most people quit. They begin their journey powered by imagined applause. They start the business picturing the day people call them successful. They start training picturing the compliments, and for a few weeks the fantasy provides fuel, but the applause does not come, because the world does not clap for beginnings. The world barely notices beginnings, and so the fuel runs out precisely in the long middle stretch where all the actual building happens. The gap between starting and being celebrated is measured in years, and that gap is a desert that external motivation cannot cross. Only one kind of fuel survives the desert, a private standard. A definition of who you are that does not require witnesses. The people who make it across are the ones who decided, somewhere in the silence, that the work is between them and themselves, and that an audience, if it ever arrives, will be a side effect rather than the point. Examine what it costs you to need an audience, because the cost is larger than motivation. The person who works for applause has handed the controls of their effort to other people. Their output rises when praised and collapses when ignored, which means strangers now operate the throttle of their life. Worse, applause hunger warps the work itself. It pulls you toward what is visible over what is valuable, toward announcing over doing, toward the photograph of the effort instead of the effort. You have seen this person, and if you are honest, you have occasionally been this person. More energy spent telling people about the plan than executing it. Telling people feels productive because their reaction delivers a small reward, and the brain, satisfied by the reward, quietly loses urgency for the actual work. The announcement consumed the achievement. This is why a strange discipline is practiced by many of the most productive people alive. Silence about goals. Work in secret. Let the results make the announcement. A goal shared too early leaks its pressure, and pressure is fuel. Now look at what happens in the unwatched moments, because that is where your real reputation is written, the reputation you have with yourself. Every time you cut a corner, nobody will notice. Some part of you notices. Every time the trainer looks away and you shorten the rep, every time you pad the report, no one reads closely. Every time you coast, because the boss is traveling, a quiet ledger inside you records the entry. I am someone who performs only under surveillance. And that ledger has consequences, because self-respect is not built from compliments, it is built from witnessed integrity. And the only witness who attends every moment of your life is you. The reverse entries are available too. Every private full effort, every corner not cut in the dark, every standard held when holding it earned you nothing, writes the opposite line. I am someone whose work does not depend on witnesses. Accumulate enough of those entries, and you acquire something no amount of applause can purchase. A deep, quiet certainty about who you are. People sense this certainty in a person without being able to name it. It is the gravity that the merely popular never have. The ancients had a word for this territory. Character is what you do when no one is watching. But take it further into the practical, because the unwatched hours are not only a moral test, they are a strategic goldmine. And here is why. Everyone works when watched. Watched effort is the baseline of the entire species, which means it earns no advantage. The watched hours are where you keep up. The unwatched hours are where you pull ahead. While the average person's discipline clocks out with the audience, yours keeps running, and the difference compounds daily into a lead that eventually looks like talent, luck, or genius to people who never saw the empty rooms it was built in. Ask anyone at the top of any field where the separation happened, and they will point to the same places. The early mornings, the late evenings, the weekends, the repetitions done after everyone else went home. The crowd calls it gifted. The person knows better. The gift was purchased in private, at full price, in installments nobody witnessed. Consider the story told about a young musician who asked a master how he played so effortlessly. The master invited him to arrive at 5 the next morning, and the student found him already deep in practice, drilling the same passage over and over. Slowly, imperfectly, patiently. The student was confused. You have already mastered this, he said. Audiences say you are flawless. The master kept playing and answered, Audiences hear 2 hours a year. I hear every hour, and I do not practice for them. The student understood then that he had been asking the wrong question all along. The question was never, how do you play so well in public? The question was, who are you in private? And the public playing was simply that private identity, leaking out. Turn this into machinery for your own life. First, set private standards with numbers attached, because vague intentions dissolve in solitude. Not "I will work hard on the business," but 4 focused 90-minute blocks this week, phone in another room. Not "I will train seriously," but 3 sessions, every set logged, no session ending early, without a written reason. The log matters enormously. Become the auditor of your own unwatched hours. A notebook where you record what you actually did, honestly, daily, converts the invisible into the visible and makes you accountable to the only judge who is always in the room. Second, arrange a weekly appointment with that judge. 10 minutes, once a week, reviewing the log and asking one question. Would I be proud of this week if the whole thing had been filmed? Not the highlights, the whole thing. That single question, asked with regularity, will change your Tuesdays more than any motivational speech ever could. Third, practice one deliberate act of invisible excellence daily. Do something to full standard that no one will ever see or credit. Clean the corner nobody checks. Rewrite the paragraph nobody would have flagged. Do the final repetition with perfect form in an empty gym. This sounds trivial, and it is not, because you are not really finishing a task. You are casting a vote for an identity, and identities are elected by daily votes. 100 private votes for "I do things properly," and the identity takes office, and once it holds office, it governs everything, including all your public moments, automatically. Fourth, wean yourself off announcement. For your next meaningful goal, tell no one, or tell only the single person whose help you genuinely need. Feel the itch to post, to mention, to hint, and let the itch pass unanswered. Bank that pressure. Let it come out through your hands instead of your mouth. Be warned about the desert stretch, because it will test this philosophy precisely where it hurts. There will be a period, perhaps a long one, when you are improving and nobody notices, producing and nobody cares, holding standards and receiving nothing for it, while louder, shallower people collect attention for lesser work. This period is not an error in the system. It is the system, and it is doing you a favor, because it is filtering out everyone whose commitment required an audience, which is to say, most of your competition. The desert is where the field thins. Feel the unfairness fully, then return to the work, because the work does not know it is unwitnessed. The repetitions count identically either way, the pages accumulate identically either way, and compounding does not check whether anyone is watching before it multiplies. And when the applause finally arrives, and if you persist, it usually does, something unexpected will happen. You will discover it matters less than you once dreamed. It will be pleasant, briefly, like weather. But the person you will have become by then draws satisfaction from a source the crowd cannot reach and cannot take away. The private knowledge of full effort honestly given. That knowledge is the actual prize. Applause is loud, but it is rented. Self-respect is quiet, but you own it outright. Tonight, one assignment. Identify the place in your life where your effort drops the most when observation stops. Be surgical and honest about it. Then, design this week's version of that task as if a camera were running, and do it that way with the camera absent. 1 week. Watch what it does, not to the task, but to the way you look at yourself in the mirror. The empty room has been waiting for you. It is the most honest place you will ever work, and everything you truly want is on the other side of the hours you spend there. Chapter 8. Turn every failure into fuel for your comeback. You are going to fail. Not might, Not could, will. If you pursue anything worth pursuing, failure is not a possibility along the route. It is the route. The business idea that does not survive contact with customers. The promotion given to someone else. The relationship that collapses despite your effort. The public attempt that lands flat while people watch. These are coming for you as surely as weather, and no amount of intelligence, preparation, or virtue grants an exemption. Every accomplished person you admire owns a private museum of disasters, larger and more painful than yours. And here is what separates them from everyone else: not fewer failures, but a different relationship with failure. They learn to do something with it. Most people are stopped by failure. A few are fed by it. This chapter is about becoming the second kind, because the skill of converting failure into fuel may be the single highest leverage skill a human being can develop, given how much raw material life supplies. Start by dismantling the most destructive sentence in the language of defeat: I am a failure. Notice what those 4 words do. They take an event and convert it into an identity. Something you did becomes something you are. And this conversion is not just cruel, it is factually wrong. Failure is information about an attempt, not a verdict on a person. The venture failed. The exam was failed. The attempt failed. These are accurate statements about outcomes. I am a failure is a category error, like saying I am a Tuesday. The people who recover fast from defeat all perform the same mental move, usually without knowing they are doing it. They keep failure in the event category and refuse its application for citizenship in the identity category. The attempt died. The person attempting remains fully alive, now with more information than before. Practice the language deliberately, because language builds the cage or the door. Not, I failed as a person, but that approach failed. Not, I am bad at this, but I am not yet good at this, and yet is a load-bearing word. Now, understand what failure actually contains, because inside every defeat is a package of assets that success cannot provide. Success is a poor teacher. It confirms what you did and hides what you got away with. And people on winning streaks routinely learn nothing for years. Failure is a brutal but honest instructor. It shows you, with a precision no book can match, exactly where your model of reality was wrong. The market did not want what you were sure it wanted. Your preparation had a hole exactly here. Your reading of that person was mistaken in exactly this way. This is priceless intelligence, and you paid for it in pain, which means walking away without collecting it is the only true loss in the whole affair. Failure plus extraction equals education. Failure without extraction equals just pain. The event is the same in both equations. The second term is your choice. So build the extraction ritual and make it mechanical so that emotion cannot skip it. When a meaningful failure lands, first grant yourself a mourning window, real and time-boxed. 24 hours for a small defeat, perhaps a week for a large one, in which you are allowed to feel everything fully. Disappointment, embarrassment, anger, grief, without rushing to silver linings. Suppressed feelings do not disappear. They go underground and sabotage you later. So feel them on schedule. But when the window closes, it closes, and the autopsy begins. Sit down with paper and answer 4 questions in writing. What exactly happened, in facts, stripped of drama and self-flagellation? What was within my control and what genuinely was not? What will I do differently in the next attempt? Specifically, not, I will try harder, but I will validate demand before building. I will prepare double for that question. I will speak up in the second meeting rather than the 10th. And finally, what did this failure make me learn that success would have hidden from me forever? Write the answers, keep them, and you have converted a wound into a manual. Skip the writing, and within a month the pain will remain, but the lessons will have evaporated, which is the worst of both worlds. Watch what failure does to your story about yourself, because this is where comebacks are made or lost. After a defeat, your mind becomes a courtroom, and a prosecutor rises with a familiar case. This proves what we always suspected. You are not good enough. You were foolish to try. Everyone saw, and trying again would be twice as foolish. The prosecutor is fluent, persuasive, and available at 3 a.m. Your job is not to silence him, you cannot, but to appoint a defense that argues facts. The fact that this attempt failed sits alongside other facts. That you attempted it all while most people never do. That you now hold intelligence you lacked a month ago. That the history of every field is written by people whose early chapters look exactly like yours does right now. The inventor whose thousands of failed filaments preceded the light bulb reframed the record honestly, not thousands of failures, thousands of identified ways that did not work, each one narrowing the search. That is not spin. It is a more accurate description of what experimentation is, and your life is an experiment whether you frame it that way or not. Consider the woman whose restaurant collapsed after 3 years, taking her savings and, for a while, her confidence. She spent a month grieving, then performed the autopsy honestly and found the lessons written in the wreckage. She had chosen the location on emotion, priced on hope rather than numbers, and hidden from her books whenever the news inside them was bad. 2 years later, she opened again, and this time, every decision that had killed the first restaurant was inverted in the second. Location chosen on foot traffic data, prices built from spreadsheets, finances reviewed every Monday, no matter how uncomfortable. The second restaurant thrived, and she said something later worth keeping. The first restaurant was the tuition. The second was the degree. And people who quit after the tuition pay full price and collect nothing. The failure had not been the opposite of her success. It had been the first draft of it. Guard carefully against the two extreme responses that ruin the middle path. The first extreme is collapse, taking the failure so personally that you never attempt again, shrinking your life to the set of activities where defeat is impossible, which is also the set where nothing meaningful lives. The second extreme is denial, bouncing instantly forward with lessons unlearned, blaming luck, timing, and other people, repeating the identical mistake in new costumes for decades. The collapsed learn nothing because they stop. The deniers learn nothing because they never look. The middle path holds both truths at once. This failure was real, and it matters, and this failure is material, and I will use it. Grieve like it matters, then mine it like it is ore, because it is both. Understand also the strange mathematics of failure and time, because it should change how you weigh risks. In the moment, failure feels enormous and permanent, a stain that everyone will remember forever. Run the actual test. Recall the failures of the people around you from 5 years ago. You cannot. Not because they did not fail, but because nobody was keeping the record you assumed they were keeping. Everyone is the main character of their own drama and a background extra in everyone else's, and your catastrophe was a passing scene in their week. Meanwhile, the compensation runs in the opposite direction. The failures fade from everyone's memory, including eventually your own, but the lessons, if extracted, compound forever. You are trading a temporary embarrassment for permanent equipment. Priced correctly, Failure is one of the cheapest purchases available, and the fear of it is wildly overpriced. There is one more conversion available, and it is the deepest one. Failure as fuel, in the most literal sense. Somewhere in you lives a furnace, and rejection, dismissal, and defeat are combustible. The teacher who said you would amount to nothing, the investors who passed, the position given to someone half as committed, the people who smiled when you fell. You can carry these as wounds that ache, or load them as fuel that burns, and the chemistry is identical, only the direction differs. Some of the greatest careers in every field were powered substantially by a quiet, disciplined desire to make the doubters wrong, not through argument, but through undeniable results. Handle this fuel with care. Do not let it curdle into bitterness that poisons the driver, but do not pretend it is not fuel. On the mornings when discipline is empty and inspiration is absent, the memory of being counted out will still get you out of bed, and there is no shame in burning it. Your assignment tonight reaches backward. Choose the failure from your past that still stings the most, the one you avoid thinking about. Give it the autopsy it never received, the 4 questions, in writing, honestly. You will likely discover 2 things. First, lessons are still sitting in the wreckage, perfectly preserved, waiting years for your collection. Second, the event has less power over you at the bottom of a written page than it had circling in your head. Then find one arena where fear of failing again has kept you from re-entering, and schedule the smallest possible re-entry. This week. The comeback does not begin when you win. The comeback begins the moment you decide the defeat gets a job in your story instead of the final word. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8, and stand up smarter every single time. The people who cannot be stopped are not the ones who never hit the ground. They are the ones for whom the ground became a launching pad, and that transformation is not granted to the lucky. It is performed deliberately by the willing, one autopsy at a time. Chapter 9. Protect your time and energy from draining people. You have a finite amount of life. That sentence sounds obvious until you sit with it. Every day you receive 24 hours and a limited tank of energy, and unlike money, not 1 minute of it can be earned back, borrowed, or replaced. Whatever you build, you will build it out of time and energy. They are the raw materials of everything. Your health, your work, your dreams, your peace. And here is the uncomfortable truth this chapter exists to deliver. Some of the people in your life are consuming those materials at a rate that is quietly bankrupting you. And because the theft happens in small daily withdrawals, rather than one dramatic robbery, you have never done the accounting. It is time to do the accounting, not out of cruelty, not out of arrogance, but for the same reason you lock your front door. What is valuable and finite must be protected, and nothing you own is more valuable or more finite than your hours and your inner fire. Understand first how influence actually works, because it is far more powerful than anyone wants to believe. You are permeable. Every human is. Spend enough time around complainers, and you will find complaints forming in your own mouth. Spend enough time around the ambitious, and your own standards rise, without a single conversation about standards. Moods transfer, vocabularies transfer, expectations transfer, definitions of normal transfer. The people around you are constantly, silently voting on what counts as a reasonable life, a good effort, an acceptable habit, and you absorb the election results, whether you cast a ballot or not. There is an old observation that you become the average of the few people you spend the most time with, and while the arithmetic is not literal, the direction is undeniable. Which means the question, who do I spend my time with, is not a social question. It is a destiny question, as consequential as your diet, and deserving of the same honest audit. So run the audit. Take a page tonight and list the 7 or 8 people you exchange the most hours and messages with. Beside each name, answer honestly. After time with this person, do I typically feel energized or emptied? Larger or smaller? Clearer or cloudier? Do they speak more about ideas and possibilities, or more about grievances and other people? When something good happens to me, is their first reflex celebration or a subtle deflation? A joke that shrinks it? A warning that shadows it? When I am becoming better, do they cheer the change or mock it? Do they say, "You have changed," as a compliment or an accusation? Do not overthink. Your body already knows these answers. It has been keeping records for years, in the form of the slight dread before certain names light up your phone, and the lightness after certain other visits. The audit simply moves the body's records onto paper, where decisions can be made. Now learn to recognize the specific patterns of drain because they wear different uniforms. There is the chronic complainer, for whom every conversation is a tour of grievances, who does not want solutions, has never wanted solutions, and will be visibly annoyed if you offer one. Because the complaint is not a problem to be solved, it is a lifestyle to be shared. There is the crab in the bucket, who reaches up to pull down anyone climbing out, mocking your diet at dinner, calling your studying obsessive, treating your ambition as a personal insult, because your climb exposes the choice they are not making. There is the drama engine, who converts every molehill into a summit and requires your constant emotional labor as fuel, whose emergencies are weekly and whose gratitude is nowhere. There is the taker, who appears warmly whenever they need something and evaporates whenever you do, keeping a relationship that runs entirely one direction. And there is the subtle underminer, hardest to spot, who delivers discouragement in the packaging of concern. I just do not want to see you get hurt. I just think you should be realistic. Phrases that sound like love and function like anchors. None of these people are necessarily evil. Most are unhappy in ways they have never confronted. But your compassion for the cause does not neutralize the effect. And the effect is that you leave their presence with less of yourself than you arrived with. Here is where most people flinch, so meet the objection directly. Is it not selfish to withdraw from people? Are we not supposed to help? Look closer at what is actually happening in a draining relationship, because it is usually not help. Help has a direction. It moves someone towards strength, and it is received, worked with, built upon. What the chronic drainer wants is not help, but audience. Not a ladder, but a witness to their preferred story, that nothing is their fault and nothing can be done. 10 years of listening to it has not improved their life by 1 degree. Which is the proof? You are not their solution. You are their sedative. And a sedative helps no one heal. Meanwhile, the hours are real, the depletion is real, and every unit of energy spent absorbing recreational negativity is a unit unavailable to your children, your work, your health, and the people in your life who genuinely reciprocate. Protecting your energy is not a betrayal of others. It is the precondition for having anything real to offer anyone. Even on airplanes they tell you, secure your own mask first. Not because you matter more, but because an unconscious person saves nobody. Now, the practical tiers of response, because protect does not always mean amputate. The first tier is boundaries. And boundaries are not walls or punishments. They are simply the published operating rules of your life, delivered without anger and enforced without apology. I do not discuss that topic. I am not available after 9. I can listen for a while, but I am not able to carry this every day. I would love to see you, and I will leave if the evening becomes an attack on my choices. Say them calmly, once, and then enforce them with behavior rather than repetition. Because a boundary that bends under pressure teaches people that pressure works. Expect pushback, expect to be called selfish or changed, and understand what the pushback means. The people angriest at your new boundaries are the people who profited most from your old lack of them. Their anger is not evidence you are wrong. It is evidence the boundary was needed. The second tier is dosage. Some draining people cannot be removed and should not be. Family, colleagues, people woven into your obligations, and for them, the tool is not the exit, but the dial. Shorter visits. Structured settings. Meetings in the morning when your tank is full, rather than evenings when it is empty. Conversations steered, gently and repeatedly, away from the drain and toward the neutral. You can love someone at a dose you can afford, and reducing the dose is often what saves the relationship, because resentment, the thing that actually kills family bonds, grows precisely in the gap between the exposure you can handle and the exposure you are enduring. And the third tier, reserved for the genuinely toxic, the abusive, the ones who damage rather than merely drain, is distance. Up to and including complete. This is the hardest tier and sometimes the most necessary, and the guilt that accompanies it fades far sooner than the relief lasts. Grieve what the relationship was supposed to be, and stop paying installments on what it actually is. Do not forget the other half of the equation, because protection is not only subtraction. Every hour reclaimed from draining company is an hour that can be reinvested, and the highest return investment available is deliberate proximity to people who raise you. Seek the ones whose presence makes you want to work when you leave the room, whose standards embarrass your excuses, whose response to your good news is genuine fire. If your current circles contain none of these people, stop treating that as fate. It is a logistics problem. They gather in predictable places, courses, gyms, professional groups, volunteer efforts, communities built around crafts and disciplines, and they are found by participation, not by waiting. And while you search, borrow greatness from the shelf. The books, lectures, and recorded minds of the best humans who ever lived are available for pennies. And an hour with a great book is an hour in elevated company. Loneliness in a growth season is real. There is often a gap between leaving the old table and finding the new one, and the gap tests you. Sit in it with patience. An empty chair is better than a chair that drains you, because the empty chair, at least, leaves room for someone better to sit down. One warning as you do all this. Aimed inward. Check that you are not someone else's drain. Audit yourself with the same questions. Do people leave you fuller or emptier? Do you celebrate or deflate? Do you carry your weight in your relationships or arrive only with needs? The standards you enforce must be standards you meet, and becoming the kind of person who energizes a room is both the fair price of this chapter and, conveniently, the exact trait that attracts the high-quality people you are looking for. Tonight, 3 actions. Complete the audit of your inner circle on paper. Choose the single most draining recurring interaction in your life and design its boundary or its dosage change in writing with the sentence you will calmly say. And identify one person in your life or adjacent to it whose presence lifts you and invest in them this week. A message, a meeting, a genuine question about their work. Your time is your life in liquid form, and every person you regularly see is either an investment or an expense. You would not let anyone quietly drain your bank account for years out of politeness. Your hours are worth more than your money. Guard them like it. Chapter 10. Commit to improving yourself every single day forever. Every chapter before this one shares a hidden assumption, and the time has come to say it plainly. None of this works as a phase. Responsibility taken for a month, habits built for a season, discomfort embraced until the first results arrive. These produce a spike and then a slide, and the slide erases the spike. You have seen it 100 times. In others and in yourself, the January transformation dead by March. The post-crisis clarity dissolved by summer, the seminar high gone by the weekend. The problem was never the effort. The problem was the frame. Self-improvement was treated as a project, and projects end. This final chapter asks you to make the one decision that changes everything downstream of it, the decision that growth is not a project, but a direction, not a destination you reach, but a way you travel. Every day, for the rest of your life. Forever is the load-bearing word in this chapter's title, and everything depends on whether you mean it. Notice what the forever frame immediately fixes. It kills the finish line problem, the strange collapse that follows achievement, where people reach the goal weight, the promotion, the launch, and then deflate, because the goal was carrying all the meaning and the goal is now spent. Travelers in a direction do not have this problem. Every arrival is a waypoint, celebrated briefly and folded into the journey. It kills the perfection problem because a person committed for life can afford bad days, bad weeks, even bad months, the way a long marriage can afford a bad argument. The commitment is the container that holds the fluctuations. And it kills the comparison problem because a lifelong traveler measures against one person only, yesterday's version of themselves, and that is a race that can actually be won every single day, quietly, regardless of what anyone else on earth is doing. Understand the mathematics of forever because they are almost unbelievable. Improvement that continues does not add, it compounds. The reader of 20 pages a day is not merely accumulating books. Each book is changing the reader who reads the next one. Understanding, multiplying understanding. The skill practiced daily is not stacking hours. Each hour is performed by a slightly better practitioner than the last. This is why the gap between people widens so shockingly over decades, why two classmates with identical talent can be unrecognizable to each other at 50. One treated growth as an event, and the other treated it as a climate. And climates, given 20 years, produce different worlds. A single % of improvement per week is invisible to everyone, including you, for the first year. By the 10th year, it is indistinguishable from magic. The people you call gifted are, overwhelmingly, just people who never stopped. And never stopping is not a talent. It is a decision, renewed daily, available to anyone, starting with whoever is hearing this sentence. Now build the structure that carries a decision across decades, because willpower will not. Willpower is a sprinter, and this is the longest of long games. The structure has 4 parts, and the first is the daily minimum, the non-negotiable floor. Choose a set of daily actions so small that no honest version of your worst day cannot hold them, perhaps 10 minutes of movement, 10 minutes of reading or learning, and 1 deliberate act toward your central goal. On strong days, you will sail far past the floor, and the floor will seem laughably irrelevant. The floor is not for strong days. The floor is for the sick days, the grieving days, the traveling, chaotic, everything on fire days. And its function is not progress, but continuity. Keeping the identity alive, keeping the chain unbroken. Because the true enemy of a lifelong practice is never a small daily quantity. It is the zero. Zeros metastasize. 1 becomes, 3 becomes a month, becomes a former habit. Defend the floor, and you never have to rebuild from rubble again, and anyone who has rebuilt from rubble knows that never doing it again is worth almost anything. The second part is the review, because a direction requires navigation. Once a week, 15 minutes, 3 questions on paper. What did I do well? Where did I flinch? What is the one focus of the coming week? Once a quarter, an hour with the bigger dials. Is my health trending up or down? My competence, my finances, my closest relationships, my inner weather, and what one adjustment does each trend request? Unexamined lives do not merely lack philosophy. They drift. And drift is how a person wakes at 50 in a life they never chose, assembled entirely from unreviewed defaults. The review is the steering wheel. It converts experience, which everyone accumulates, into wisdom, which almost nobody does, because wisdom is experience that got examined. The third part is the season logic. Forever does not mean uniform, and the travelers who last are the ones who learn to breathe. There are pushing seasons, where you attack a goal with everything, and consolidating seasons, where you protect the gains, recover, and let the roots catch up with the branches. There are seasons where career leads, and seasons where family or health must, and pretending otherwise breaks people. The daily floor persists through every season, that is its entire point, but the ambition above the floor is allowed to pulse. Rest, scheduled and genuine, is part of the program, not a betrayal of it. The pause between notes is part of the music. What is never scheduled is quitting. Slowing is a strategy. Stopping is a death, and the difference between them is the floor. The fourth part is renewal of the vision, because the reasons that launch a journey are rarely the reasons that sustain it. You may begin improving to escape pain, to prove somebody wrong, to chase an image, and those fuels burn hot and short. Somewhere along the road, if you pay attention, deeper fuel appears. The discovery that you like who you are becoming, that strength in one room of life quietly renovates the others. That your discipline has begun to give people around you, perhaps your children, perhaps strangers, permission to attempt their own. Keep a written page, your reasons, revisited and rewritten each quarter as the reasons mature. On the dark mornings, and forever includes dark mornings, you will not remember why this matters, and the page will remember for you. Expect, too, the seasons when the entire enterprise will feel pointless, because they come for everyone who travels long enough. There will be weeks when the reviews feel like paperwork, the habits feel mechanical, and a voice asks what any of it is for. Do not treat that voice as a revelation, treat it as weather, because that is all it is. The ordinary fog of a long road. On those weeks, do not renegotiate the mission, simply shrink to the floor. Keep the minimums alive and wait. Meaning has tides. It goes out and it comes back in. And the travelers who last are not the ones who always feel the point. They are the ones who keep walking through the stretches where they cannot see it. The feeling always returns, and it returns faster to a person in motion than to a person who stopped to wait for it. A word about what all this improvement is ultimately for, so the engine does not consume the driver. The point was never optimization for its own sake, a life of metrics, a museum of streaks. The point is capacity. Every pound of strength, every book absorbed, every skill sharpened, every fear retired, is capacity. And capacity is for living, for work that matters, love given from fullness rather than need, calm offered to people in their storms, help that actually helps because there is something in the tank to give. The strongest version of you is not the final product. The strongest version of you is the instrument, and the music is your one particular life, played fully instead of muted. Improve like hell and then spend the improvement on what you love. That is the whole design. And so the ending of this book is deliberately not an ending. Somewhere behind you now are 10 chapters. The ownership of your life, the death of the perfect moment, the machinery of habit, the curriculum of pain, the execution of excuses, the training of the mind, the sacred unwatched hours, the alchemy of failure, the guarding of your energy, and now the vow of forever. Every one of them reduces to a daily practice, and every daily practice reduces to a single question, asked each morning, answerable only by you. Did I move forward today, even 1 inch? The inches are everything. The inches are the entire secret, hidden in plain sight, dismissed by everyone looking for leaps. So here is the final scene, and it belongs to you. Somewhere ahead, a year from now, 5 years, 20, there is a version of you shaped entirely by what you do after this book goes silent. There are 2 candidates for that role. One of them heard all of this, nodded, felt moved for an evening, and changed nothing, and is currently living your present life with older bones and heavier regrets. The other one started, imperfectly, unspectacularly, that same night, defended a tiny daily floor through every season life threw, reviewed and adjusted and refused the 0, and is now standing somewhere you currently cannot imagine, wearing a life built inch by inch out of ordinary days. Both candidates are real possibilities. Both are waiting on the same decision. Nobody is coming to save you. And by now, you know that sentence for what it truly is, not a warning, but a handing over of the keys. The rescue was always going to be an inside job. The tools are in your hands. The day is in front of you. Work like hell, rest like you mean it, rise again tomorrow, and never ever stop your move. Epilogue, your first 30 days. The plan that makes this book real. Books end. Lives continue. And the most dangerous moment of any book like this one is the moment right after it finishes, when the inspiration is at its peak and the temptation is strongest to simply feel changed instead of becoming changed. Feeling changed costs nothing and produces nothing. So before this audiobook releases you back into your ordinary day, it is going to hand you one final thing. A plan for the next 30 days. Specific enough that you cannot hide from it. Small enough that you cannot fail it. And complete enough that if you honor it, the person who finishes it will not be the person who started. Days 1 through 7 are the ownership week, and they belong to chapters 1 and 5. On the first night, do the exercise you may have skipped. Write your 3 biggest problems in specific terms, and beside each one, the single action that moves it 1 inch this week. Then take one of those actions within 24 hours, because the plan that survives its first day survives most days after. For the entire week, run the complaint ban. No blaming out loud, and every complaint you catch in your head gets converted on the spot into either an action or an acceptance. Also this week, write down your most used excuse, translate it into its honest sentence, and perform one act that directly contradicts it. Nothing about this week is physically hard. All of it is psychologically enormous, because by the end of it, you will have evidence. Real, dated, written evidence that you are the owner of your life and not its passenger. Everything else in the plan stands on that evidence. Days 8 through 14 are the foundation week, built from chapters 2 and 3. Choose your one keystone habit, exactly one, the daily action that would change the most if repeated for a year. Shrink it to a version that takes 10 minutes or less. Attach it to an existing routine with a written sentence. After I do this, I do that. Prepare your environment the night before, every night, so the habit is the easiest thing in the room. Then execute it daily and mark a visible calendar each time. This is also the week to kill your oldest someday. Pick the thing you have postponed the longest and take its smallest first step before the week ends. 10 minutes or less, done badly if necessary, but done. 2 rules govern this week and every week after. The day the habit gets done is a victory regardless of anything else, and if you ever miss, you never miss twice. Days 15 through 21 are the Strength Week, drawn from chapters 4 and 6. Keep the habit running, the calendar filling, and now add voluntary difficulty. Choose one act of chosen discomfort each day. Small but real, the cold shower, the early alarm, the workout that goes one step past comfortable, the conversation you have been circling, the task done first instead of last. Each evening, run the 5-minute audit. Where did I flinch today? Where did I lean in? Also this week, build your pressure page, your breathing pattern, 4 counts in, hold, long exhale out, your 3 rehearsed steadying sentences, and your pre-decided responses to your 3 most likely crises. Test the breathing at least once in a genuinely stressful moment this week, and notice what it does. By day 21, you will have discovered something most people never learn about themselves, that discomfort is survivable on purpose, and that calm is a skill you are already acquiring. Days 22 through 30 are the Fortress Week, taken from chapters 7, 8, and 9. Perform the energy audit, list the people you spend the most hours with, mark each honestly as fuel or drain, and design one boundary or one dosage change for the single most draining recurring interaction in your life. In writing, with the calm sentence you will say. Reach out to one person who lifts you and invest in them. This is also the week of the unwatched hours. Pick the task where your effort drops most when nobody is looking, and for 7 days, do it as if it were being filmed. Tell no one. And somewhere in this week, sit down with your most painful old failure and give it the autopsy. What happened in facts? What was in your control? What you would do differently? What it taught you that success never could. On day 30, hold your first weekly review. 15 minutes, 3 questions. What went well? Where did I flinch? What is the one focus of next week? Then set the daily minimum floor. You will defend from day 31 onward, forever. The 10 minutes of movement, the 10 minutes of learning, the one deliberate act toward your central goal that survives even your worst days. That is the whole plan. Read it again and notice what it does not require. It does not require money. It does not require talent. It does not require anyone's permission, cooperation, or applause. It does not even require confidence, because confidence is not the entry fee. It is the salary, paid out slowly for work performed. The plan requires only what you have always had, a series of ordinary days, and the decision to stop wasting them. 30 days from now, one of 2 people will exist. The first listened to this entire book, felt genuinely moved, intended sincerely to begin, and was reabsorbed by the old routine within a week, exactly as every previous fire went out. The second did the unglamorous things, wrote the lists, kept the 10 minutes, took the cold water, said the boundary sentence, marked the calendar, and is now standing at day 30 with a chain of small victories, a working system, and something no motivational content ever gave them. Proof. Proof that they keep their word to themselves. Proof that they are the kind of person who does what they decided. That proof is the seed of everything, because a person with proof does not need to be motivated anymore. They need only to continue. Nobody will save you. You have heard that sentence many times now, and if this book has done its work, the sentence has changed its meaning on the way through. It walked in as a threat, and it leaves as a promotion, as a handing over of keys, as the removal of every last reason to wait. You are the rescue. You always were. The wait is over, the tools are yours, and the first of your 30 days is not tomorrow. It is today. Now go. Work like hell. And do not stop.